Welcome to the fifth section of the labor market policies lecture of the gender economics course, which is an introduction to the feminist economics school, feminist school basically of economics, and basically this lecture series is prepared for the Middle East Technical University Northern Cyprus campus. And last time we had finished the first article, Kaber's article, and we were starting to the Pun's article, which is basically introducing the Chinese dormitory system. Well, the summary is the overall effect of Chinese dormitory system is mixed. On the one hand, it increases level of cooperation between the workers. On the other hand, it increases the level of control of employers on them. Well, I would like to give a few background information. At first, I should give that I should say that the Chinese dormitory system is not new. I mean, this is if I can let me open this in a different tab. Okay, this is China. You have Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, Xinjiang. Well, pronunciation is similar to Xinjiang, basically. Region, Tibet region. These are where the big ethnic minorities are living. Even though Chinese population itself consists of different ethnicities, and I mean, however, still the population that is largely considering itself as Chinese and the population that considers itself as non-Chinese still might be might differ. And as you see, the rest of China, this part is still consists of. I mean, this is the heart of China. Several provinces, and here you have Guangdong, which is kind of one of the industrial centers of the China, with its proximity to Hong Kong, especially. Well, in early era, the text you can read the details on text. Basically, when you had industries in different well, different states or different provinces of China. And well, you might have already heard. I mean, the way these provinces are working. Basically, these provinces are to large extent independent from each other, and basically they have their own rules, and to some extent the people who are living in those provinces have their own rights. Movement from a province to province, especially if this is a permanent movement, is more limited. And if you are living in Sichuan and go to, for example, Hubei or Guangdong, you might not have the full citizenship rights of the Guangdong province. I mean, the rights like the healthcare or education might not exist there. The rights you might have provided with certain rights in Sichuan, but Guangdong province won't provide you any right because you come from Sichuan. You're not native of Guangdong, unless I don't know. Maybe there's a there can be an official movement. Maybe in some cases that might be the exception. And in this Corona break, if you have followed the rules, follow the news, you might have also seen that. I mean, state provinces have their kind of they have their own rules, their own functioning, and federal government of China basically usually gets into the solving issues when the state governments are not able to handle that, the local issues, especially. I mean, of course, they have a statewide strategy and plans, and sometimes development plans. However, they leave a significant amount of internal issues to them states. While in the Maoist era, we should mention that the system which is described by the text, but not for Maoist era, but post-Maoist era. But that system also exists in the Maoist era. Its version in Maoist era is not that described in detail in this article. But basically, there were workers who were staying in the dormitories. However, at that time, usually this was true for the people who were living in the rural areas of the states and go to the centers of the state to work. Of course, in that case, the more industrialized provinces, that movement might be more significant, more drastic, maybe. And those people, the people who were working in the industrial centers of their provinces in the Maoist era, they had significant rights like sometimes childcare, health care, some social activities, things like that were given. They were part of the rights they had. Well, after Maoist era is over, of course, we should not much romanticize those rights. In many ways, they could be inferior because, well, basically, China was a much poorer country than today. So not necessarily those rights are in any way comparable to the rights of the, let's say, middle class in countries like middle class in countries like Turkey and United States. But considering especially the people who are working in the inferior jobs, those rights could be maybe also substantial, especially for the people who are coming from the provinces. This might be the case. I mean, rural areas, not provinces. Rural areas, this might be the case. So, after Maoist era, one thing that happened is, of course, China opened for them businesses. I mean, the private businesses. And interestingly, actually, there were two different terms after. That developed in the Maoist era, I believe, but kind of reflects the logic of the post-Maoist era more significantly, in my opinion. Well, there are two different terms for worker in China. One is Gongran, and that's kind of real workers. I mean, workers working for them, state enterprises, who basically are seen as people having higher status. And now you have Dagong. Dagong is something like a hired hand, according to the text. This is the workers who are working for private business, hired workers. So this is kind of both are wage workers, of course, but this version is for the private workers. This version is Gongran's. The workers Gongran encompasses the workers who are working for the state. And then you have Dagong Mei. Mei means sister. So these are the female workers who are working for a company. So this development already has created actually two different workforce in China. And then there has been another development. I believe that development was in 1990s. Well, many people who are living in relatively rural provinces, they start to go to the provinces where industry was more developed. They go to those places. They usually, they are not allowed to go there and be citizens, and they cannot get the citizenship rights. So when they are in those provinces, they basically go to, of course, the industrial centers. They don't have any rights, any social, well, rights, like, again, any right provided to the citizens by the state, like healthcare, I don't know, education, things like that. Mostly they leave actually their children in the provinces they come from, and mostly they leave their children with their parents who are grandparents of the children. So childcare is done by grandparents in that sense. I mean, the people, the children might not see their um, actual parents. And when they go there for a while, when they go there, they stay in the dormitories. They don't go to the cities, not live in the. They are not seen in the city even much. Uh, and usually the jobs they got are for 1 year, 2 year, not more than a few years at most. And then they need to go back to their provinces. Of course, I mean, the payment is a good payment. Currently, of course, at least to some of the inner provinces, certainly Sichuan, some industries are moving, so maybe people are also able to work in their own uh, provinces. But this situation, as far as I know, still continues, and it's called in China the huku system. Interesting name. Or it should have a meaning in Chinese. Maybe it was written in the text. Actually, I don't remember it. So this is basically the background. And who are going to those provinces? Well, sometimes they need that income, they need this extra resource to actually caring for their children in a better way. But in some cases, people might also want to go to those industrial centers and leave this cosmopolitan type of atmosphere, even though they cannot enjoy the city in full sense. At least they see people coming from different parts of China, and also they see this big factory. They work in the industry. Those things might be also things that might be welcomed by the people who are living in provinces and rural areas of the provinces. Um, so this is the background, uh, basically. Maybe I should also talk a little bit on the. I have talked on the micro incentives of the migrate, macro incentives to migrate also. Well, China has passed to the family responsibility system. Previously, it has collective farms where many families were bound together, which was also giving to families certain rights, although those rights might also be not too impressive looking from especially middle class perspective of an even developing country. Um, but family responsibility system make those the farms in rural areas relatively more insecure. Um, so in many ways, actually, especially the women in teens are sent by their families also to those factories in the urban areas. And basically, um, also the productivity increase in the rural areas has created, especially for the relatively large families or the families who have relatively small areas, a surplus let's say, um, uh, surplus um, labor, and that labor could be could be sent to the cities to work there. Of course, now the number of children are also low but in the rural areas that number can relatively be higher, basically. And also, the we should mention the provinces are encouraging the people to go so that they can get their incomes back to the those provinces and increase the improve the economic status of the provinces also. Anyway, we will talk more on the overall picture, and then we will go to the dormitory system. itself and talk on the system itself. So see you in the next part.